Good morning, y'all. I'm going to cry already. Uh, Welcome to the Awakening and Conscious Living podcast. My name is Bill Poutler, and this is
I'm Louisa.
Louisa. And we are currently on our seventh episode. And this series is about finding the invisible patterns that are controlling our lives. And so today we're going to discuss emotional suppression. Uh, that the emotions that we're not expressing are really directing our actions. So, uh, kind of the opening idea here is that we were all taught, directly or indirectly, that emotional control is the same as emotional maturity. But that is not the truth. And when we say directly or indirectly, it could be by example or it could be what we were told, like, don't cry. If you're a male, don't cry. Don't get angry. Don't be afraid. Don't let people see you get hurt. But there's a difference between being grounded and being numbed,
Mm.
uh, and refusing to feel those emotions. Because when we don't express our emotions, they become our shadows. So, Louisa, so that's obviously our opening idea. Is there anything you want to say about that? Maybe how you were taught to not be afraid or not to cry or just anything?
I would say I would add as a young woman, as a lady, as a girl, I was just taught to not be too overly emotional. So I think for men and boys, it's, the idea of don't cry. And for me, it was, what are you making all this fuss about? Why is this such a big deal? This is not a big deal. So yeah, everything else you said is right in alignment with, with what I agree with and my perception of it.
I find that interesting that as a woman, I always thought women are supposed to like let all their emotions out. Uh, why were you taught to hold your emotions in?
It's an inconvenience if I feel something and I need to cry or I need to talk about it. Why do I need to talk about everything?
Wow, an inconvenience. That's sad that it's inconvenient for us to express our emotions.
Yeah. And I mean, emotions are, for me, I am heavily emotional and I do believe that we all are. And emotions are the way that I experience this realm. That's how it starts. The way that I look at it and the way that I taught my children is emotions come up. It's the thing that we can't control, right? Like that emotion that comes up from whatever experience you're having, that I have no control over that. What I do have control over is what happens after that emotion. And then the feeling that becomes a result of that emotion. And then, therefore, the actions that I take as a result of that emotion. But that emotion, I have no control over it, and that is an innate part of my human experience. So for a lot of us to be taught, and for a lot of the girls that I knew growing up, like I can think back to my best friends in middle school and in high school, and we were all taught the same thing. I think I will point out though that the 3 of us that I'm speaking of, my friends in middle school and high school, it was our fathers predominantly who were raising us. So, 2 of us didn't have a present mother, and the other one did have a present mother, very present, but it was her father who did most of the child raising and teaching and things like that.
The dominant male authority in the family, right? Exactly. And I think we talked about this, I don't know if on the podcast or personally in the last couple of weeks, but um, emotions. I was watching a show the other day, and I was a show, I can't remember if I was in a movie, I was somewhere, and something startling happened in that show. And when that happened, like this emotion of like being startled and almost scared came up in me. And I started thinking about that emotion. I couldn't control it, right? And so, what are these things that happen that trigger us in the outside world for good, for bad, doesn't matter, that bring up these emotions that we have? And you kind of made reference to this just a few minutes ago. And I think it's important for people to think about because once you see that, you realize that it's through emotions is one of the primary ways that we interact with the world, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so emotional suppression just means we're suppressing what is a natural piece of how we interface.
Yeah.
So,
And if you believe in past lives, then from my perspective, because I do believe in past lives, then you are suppressing part of what your soul came here to experience because there was an experience in a past life that is causing that emotion to come up. There's a reason for that.
yeah, we can go down that pretty deeply. I agree with some of that. I don't know that I agree with all of it because, but we can't. I believe that yes, we can be triggered from past lives. Yeah, this is too deep for me because the way I think about past lives now is really they're all just happening all at once and
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
kind of split it off. And this is the one we think we're focused on right now.
Yeah. That makes sense. I can see what you mean when you say could go really deep. I've never gone down that route, but I do believe that we are. So I just haven't put it all together. So I know I understand what you mean.
Yeah, but we're going to stay with awakening and conscious living.
Yes, we are, because that's a whole other podcast in itself.
So this core premise that we have here today is that we have these emotions that sometimes we do not express, or we express them like in an not an inappropriate manner, but in a way that we are not controlling them.
Mhm.
Well, I don't even know that controlling is the right word. You might want to help me with this. But we're not
Well,
expressing them health in a healthy manner. Go ahead.
we're letting them control us, in
There we
essence.
go. Thank you.
Yeah.
So when we don't, I mean, we can not express our emotions through silence, through avoidance, through resentment. I mean, we can be exhausted and not express our emotions, but that suppression uh, has another side to it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we can become numb, we can become busy so that we don't feel our emotions. We can withdraw. So, does any of that resonate with you? About do you have a core emotion or a go-to emotion that has a dark side?
I definitely do. But I'd like to add too, that can also become depression, isolation. Um, it can also become, like self-sabotage. I've seen that. Um, but yeah, I do believe that what tends to happen, for all of us is, if you are suppressing the emotions and you're not expressing them, you're holding them in for whatever reason, whether you were taught, as a man that you shouldn't be so emotional, as a woman that you shouldn't be so emotional, happens is we sort of create this way that we handle that we manage that we do control that in a way. And for me, that is, I will isolate. I will walk the fuck out of your life and you will never see or hear from me again. I am really good at that. And I will just, and if I do have to be in your life, I will just stay quiet. I mastered that and I used to be extremely proud of it because I used to look at it as, emotional maturity. Oh, numbness, the depression, isolation, essentially burnout too is another way of emotional suppression and perfectionism as well, in terms of not wanting to express or not expressing, not wanting to, because that's not always the case. Your emotions, it can convert and look like all of those other things as well.
Hmm. Yeah. Um, and I know that I grew up in an, you expected to work type of thing and make money and now that I call myself people go, do you work? I'm like, I'm semi-retired. Uh, but I feel like I'm doing stuff a lot of
Yeah.
always being busy, I mean, we just want to be busy in America, we're gonna work all week and then we're gonna play hard all weekend and you know,
Yeah.
uh
Yeah, that's a big cultural thing is work hard, play hard. It's like you do both hard.
I forgot about that term, work hard, play
Yeah.
hard. That is so true. Um, and I was I'm in thinking about this podcast. Uh, I never really thought about it until like the last couple days. But the dynamic, I mean, I had good parents, okay? No question, no abuse, no trauma. But my parents had their own gifts, and and all gifts have a positive and negative side. And as people come together and they're trying to work through their stuff, there's stuff happens in a family, right? And I remember, and I've talked about this, I think, on the show a little bit, that I was like a peacekeeper, but I was holding all those emotions in. That I forgot till just the other day. I used to run away. Like, now I was little, like four, five, six type of stuff. And I would run away, and I would run away to an older lady who lived in the neighborhood just 6 or 8 houses away, but I wouldn't tell my parents where I was. I didn't realize that when I got there, she would call my parents and tell me where I was, tell them where I was. uh
She snitched on you.
yeah, but it was a safety thing, right? uh
Absolutely. Absolutely.
but I just was thinking about that, and how that trying to keep peace in the family, I was holding all those emotions in. And then I just had to leave, you know, and just work through them somewhere else before I came back to the house. I was never gone for not even a whole night, I don't think. But I thought that was, just realized that was pretty crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, the emotional suppression, I remember when it started. I remember the trip from the Dominican Republic to the US the first time when I was brought but and I remember with such clarity, um, that felt like the beginning of what changed my life, when I came to live to the United States. Because even that night, it was Friday, and my family growing up, it was always pizza night. We all got together in an apartment. I remember that being the first time that not only was I an outsider and all of the things, but it was the first time that I couldn't express myself. First of all, most of my cousins spoke English by then, and I obviously didn't, first day here. But also, I didn't know how to like inject myself in this big group of kids. But what started to happen was the abuse that would go on at my house. Um, with my dad, then I just learned to stay quiet at all. So I never actually learned how to inject myself and how to speak my emotions and my feelings and wants and desires in a group, because I learned that it was safer to not do that, period. So working at the public library, it was my first job. And it was a place I learned that I could isolate, where I picked up books and learned to love books. I was always an avid reader, and I never understood why. It was the only place that I could understand emotions. Books were what taught me emotions, how to process emotions, what emotions were, how to feel them, what was okay emotionally for someone to do and not do. Because primarily what I've always enjoyed reading are the romance novels. And I'm like, I'm not a super romantic chick. Like, that's not who I am. So I always wondered, like, what is it about these romance novels that I'm so attracted to, and finally figured it out a few years ago. It was the emotional expression. It is the only place that I learned as a child how to do that, what that looks like, what that feels like. I learned all of my emotional processing, emotional intelligence from books.
That's pretty crazy.
I
That's
know.
amazing. And actually, it's very interesting. Makes me think of like the type of stuff that I like to watch on TV, like where the characters are very developed and they're in these
Mhm.
unusual situations, like right now I've got one last episode of The Agency, and it is one of the best spy series I've ever watched. Um, and you see these spies, I mean, uh, and how they have to have these alter personalities and how they deal with all this. That type of stuff is fascinating to me. But I have a degree in sociology too, and that's why I was drawn to sociology, trying to understand how we think and act, and what happens when we're put in a different environment with 80 other people in a small room, or where we have to protect ourselves, or where we have to pretend who we aren't. So
That's
the
interesting.
whole
That's
thing,
very interesting. I think about unprocessed emotions as something that you hide under the rug. And then when you pick that rug up or when somebody lifts it up a little bit, it's like, oh, it's like it's real. Stress hormones, they're there. It remains elevated. Your brain, it starts to look at these other situations that have similar emotions that could arise from that emotion that you suppress. It can start to look at them as like danger. So then, therefore, you're like preventing yourself from having these experiences and living these experiences that, that could bring up the same emotions unconsciously. And your reactions become automatic. I think a lot about teenage boys when I say this. It's like if they're controlled by their emotions, then easier to, punch something, hit something, or whatever it is,
yeah.
because they don't have control over these emotions that they're just suppressing. And so when it finally comes out, it comes out in what you alluded to earlier, like an inappropriate way, I guess we could say, because, physical harm, etc., less than ideal. And yeah, I think those are a lot of reasons why it's important to process your emotions. You have to feel it, you have to cry it out. It helps you understand why you're avoiding what, why you're running towards something. Helps you understand where you feel safe, what makes you feel safe, and what doesn't.
I think that's beautiful. And our next topic, per se, which I think we've almost covered, but I call it the hidden rule. If I don't feel it, it can't affect me. So if I don't admit that I'm angry, uh, I can call it discernment. Or if I don't admit I'm hurt, I just say I need some space. Uh, or you could say, if I don't admit I need love, I can just call myself independent, right?
You're like jabbing at me right now.
Wow. Well, tell us more about that, Jaddy.
But no, these are it is true. I feel like it is absolutely true. This idea, I think a lot of us operate under that hidden rule. If I don't admit to it, if I don't allow it to come up, then it's not there. But it is there. It is absolutely there. Um, you are just, in essence, disallowing an aspect of your experience.
Yeah, and when we disallow that, we're not being fully ourselves, and then we're pushing that down into what we call our shadow side, right? And but we still operate out of those emotions. We're just not projecting them out into the world. We're still manipulating everything because we still have to live with those emotions, right?
Yeah,
We have to manipulate our thought process and our environment, whether it's through silence, whether it's through running away, whether it's through, I'm not going to be angry, and then it eats our gut out. I mean, literally, physically, you know, harms us when we carry anger and resentment. Literally kills us
yeah.
or harms us, I should say. And over time, if you continue to hold it, it kills you.
Yeah. And I think what I just did there was a perfect example of that, right? I mentioned I'm like, you're jabbing at me when you're talking about, and then you're like, oh, let's talk more about that. And I'm like, I think that's a perfect example of what that looks like. That's a hidden pattern that if you don't stop, like if I wasn't sitting here and had a moment while I was listening to you to sort of process that, it just goes unnoticed. It goes unnoticed that one, I know this to be true, right? When we hear true things that we know. Um, what do you do with that? I withdrew. I was like, oh, change topic, change lane. So those are things that are important to notice and be aware of because we are, like you said, we are reacting in one way or another, choosing to change the conversation, choosing not to, choosing not to talk about it, choosing whatever it is that you're choosing, that is the choice. It is directing your life by whatever you choose.
Yes, exactly. And I like it. We've talked about this before, I know, but reacting as opposed to acting, I am a big believer that we should not react, but we should look at that emotion, that situation, whatever it is, and then choose how we're going to act while still acknowledging the emotion inside of us, right? Uh, And obviously, I mean, can be a really good emotion because it can keep you from being harmed. It can keep you from helping other people not to be harmed. I mean, if you see, I don't know, somebody, you know, in a grocery store and they're abusing their child or something, I mean, you get angry, right? I, it just drives me crazy. I've seen people just like snatch their kids. You know, they grab their arm and, come here. And like it hurts me. I have to look at that and then I have to make a decision. Am I going to say something? I mean, does that help the child? Does that hurt the child? Does it bring awareness to this person? As opposed to just punch them, which is what I wanted. I really want to take that kid, snatch him up, and go, snatch him up. Just take them home with me and say, my God, you'd be better off without them. There's only so many children you can bring home. It's why we suppress. People suppress emotions for understandable reasons. Anger was unsafe in our home. Sadness was mocked. I remember that. You're sad, and then people just make fun of you.
Mm,
Fears treated as weakness. Comfort, uh, needing comfort made you feel like a burden to your family.
mm,
Uh, Learning to manage a room instead of telling the truth. So, any of those resonate with you? You want to pick any of those up?
yeah, I mean, the needing comfort thing, I never could express that in any way. That was clearly not an option. Um, and yeah, and being sad, that was also like that mocking when being sad. Especially as I became a young adult, that was like, just have a beer, drink some rum, you'll be fine. That was a big thing. So, there's this saying my dad used to, he probably still says it. My dad always said that. I remember it a lot in good and in bad ways, but I can't forget it for the life of me. It keeps coming up is, you got to die from something. Is my dad would say that. That was, you got to die from something.
Right.
And the way that he usually used it, I have since, seen both sides of it. But the way that he usually used it is like, pick a poison, whether it's cocaine, whether it's, alcohol, whatever it is, but pick a poison because you're gonna die anyway, so might as well enjoy that poison in the process.
Wow.
That was the way that he always used it. So it made me think of this, of, emotions being used, being mocked, of sadness being mocked, because that was one of the situations in which it was always like, just pick a poison, like drink it away or, sniff it away or whatever. But don't let that control you, rather use a substance to control it. I knew what it was costing me more than anything.
Okay, let's see what our next topic is. Well, this is kind of interesting. And this kind of goes back to using the word spirituality, which we've talked about that I don't always love, but we are all filled with the spirit of God, if you want to use the word God. Um, but the false spirituality of suppression. Um, there's a spiritual version out there where we are taught to suppress. The perfect spiritual person, like, shouldn't be angry, uh,
Mm,
should always forgive, right? Um, I don't want to lower my vibration. I want to stay in a positive mindset. I don't want to deal with anything negative.
mm,
Um, but when we do that, anger is information. Sadness can be tenderness. Fear can be protection. Um, so, in this spiritual walk per se, we're not trying to mask our emotions, uh, but we're also not trying to be ruled by our emotions, which I believe, the Buddhists, they talk about the middle path or the middle way. I think that really is, if we're talking about awakening and conscious living, it's becoming aware of both sides and then being able to walk that balance and realize that we have emotions, realize we have them for a purpose, realize to look at the depths of our emotions and then be able to walk that middle path, but not just you know oh, everything's perfect and I love you and everything's peaceful.
Yeah.
So this is kind of what I said earlier, but I called it key distinctions. Expression does not mean explosion. It doesn't mean we get to attack someone. Uh, it can be as simple as I feel angry or I feel hurt, and then just looking at that. And in looking at that, that's our key to liberation, right?
Mm,
I mean, that's probably the whole awakening and conscious living is we're trying to liberate ourselves. And liberate ourselves means to free ourselves, but it's not to free ourselves from our emotions, but to free ourselves from acting unconsciously about our emotions. And you can't ever do that unless you look deeply into what's going on. What is making us angry? What is making us happy?
yeah.
Uh, because if we know what makes us happy, we also know what makes us unhappy.
My Spanish podcast focuses a lot on this, on naming the emotion, because I believe that once you can name it, then you have control over it in the sense that you choose what you do with it.
Right.
So I agree that, that is liberation. Once you name it, once you can name it, once you can identify it, once you have that awareness, then you get to decide what that balance, what that middle looks like for you, referring back to what you mentioned about awareness, because living consciously is that awareness, and that is what leads to liberation. It leads to then what does balance in terms of that emotion look like for you.
Mhm. I think that's beautiful. And I mean, we do have free will at some level here. Uh, and and when you're really liberated, when you're really free, uh, you understand all the gifts that we've been given. I mean, we've been given gifts of sight, gifts of audio, hearing, gifts of touch, gifts of taste, gifts of understanding each other through emotions. I mean, whether you're in love with somebody, in love is uh, that's a whole series of podcasts right there.
That's a
But
whole other show.
that's a whole nother show. I called this named and claimed. Liberation begins when you with naming and claiming it, not uh, dramatizing it, not weaponizing it, not performance, not dumping on somebody else, but going, this is anger, this is sadness, this is fear, this is grief, this is shame,
Yeah.
and when we can name it and then we can claim it, it no longer uh, is out of our control. It's inside of our control. And when, not that we're, when, that's a whole nother show too, is control. Um, but when we can recognize something, then we can operate out of a liberated free will perspective of how we want to move through the world.
Yeah, and here's a sort of a liberation pattern. I share this on my Spanish podcast, but instead of saying, once you've identified the emotion, instead of saying, I shouldn't feel this, you should say something like, I notice that I'm feeling, name it, then don't judge it. That's a huge thing. Don't judge it. And then don't fix it. Don't immediately go to, how do I fix this? Oh my God, oh my God. Just acknowledge it. Just sit with it. Sit with it. What happens after that is going to be different for all of us, but it's beautiful.
Yes, I absolutely love that, and I completely agree with it because I'm going to say in the Western world, we're notice and fix operandi, right? That's our modus operandi. Up, problem, fix it. Up, problem, fix it.
Yeah.
Depressed, go to counselor, get drugs, you know, have a pain in my body. Don't try to figure out what it is. Go to the doctor, give me a shot, you know,
Yeah.
uh, just whatever it is, just fix it. What is pain in the body? Pain in the body is your body trying to tell you that there's either some healing that needs to go on or there's something that's misaligned. And I'm going, I need to notice my pain more instead of just trying to get rid of it. And that works inside of our bodies because our bodies are emoting what emotionally is inside of us also. But that also works at that level of our emotions. It's a back and forth thing. If we're emotionally out of control all the time, it's going to cause disharmony in our body. If our body is feeling disharmony, it will show us pain because it wants us to bring us back to a homeostasis type of position. And in that position, that's where you're liberated and free, right?
So in my perfect world, I don't get out of bed, and this isn't true right now every day, but in my perfect world, I don't get out of bed until like 30 minutes after I've woken up. And not because I'm being lazy, but because I'm sitting there, I'm laying there feeling what I'm feeling in my body. Like how does every system feel? That's a starting point. It feels like an essential part of how I should navigate the world because I need to understand it. And it is your responsibility to know what your emotions are, where they're coming from, and work through them. The beautiful part of it, there are people like therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists who can help you work through them, but it
Sure.
is you who have to do the work. They will give you a framework and a space where you can do that talk therapy, play therapy, etc. But they're not gonna do it for you. Nobody can.
No, they give you a space and then they help you realize what you're denying, right? They might have some practice and some skill sets and they've practiced for a long time, so they probably are good, but that doesn't make them the king and queens of fixing people. But I don't know what the scripture is, but it was kind of trying to come up in my head a minute ago. But I know this is probably way misquoted, but it's something like know thyself and then you shall know God.
Mm.
And, I believe that, and I know this is very controversial, even to some members of my family who I've had discussions about, but I'm like, if God animates us, then we are God. We may not be the big God per se, but we have all the attributes of God. And so if we know ourselves, we know God. And
I
know
believe
God,
that.
we know ourselves, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Here's a practical exercise. Put one hand on your chest or your belly, either one. And then you ask yourself, what am I not saying? Okay.
Mm.
What am I angry about? What am I sad about? What am I afraid of? What am I disappointed in? What am I pretending does not matter? Love that one. And you say it out loud, not trying to fix it, not trying to explain it like we just talked about, not trying to make a case for it, just to tell ourselves the truth. I feel this, and then just be alone with that inside our nervous system and bring ourselves back to honesty.
Yeah.
So that's our practice. And here are our closing thoughts or closing thought. The emotions that we suppress do not stop affecting our lives, right? They just stop asking for permission, which I think is hilarious.
Yeah.
Uh, and what we suppress becomes the hidden author of our lives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What
Uh,
you what you don't have awareness of and what you choose or don't choose, I guess it does control your life.
yeah.
So,
From the shadows, right?
from the shadows. Thank you so much for today. Thank you for all your knowledge. Thank you to the viewer for watching.
Yes. And part of this podcast series that we're doing right now is the invisible patterns that control us. And so today was the invisible emotions that control us. So acknowledge your emotions, love on yourself, pay attention to everything. And then with discernment and love, find your joy and peace.
Yeah, I agree.
If you're waking up, questioning everything, and trying to reconnect with who you truly are, I wrote this book for you. It's a guide to remembering your divine nature, healing old conditioning, and stepping into inner sovereignty. If that resonates, check out the link below, www.atobook.com.